Hi everybody, it's Jen. Welcome back to my channel, Hallmark Plus More, where we watch and talk about shows, movies, mysteries, Hallmark ornaments, and anything else that floats our boat. So today I'm going to be reviewing a Hallmark Channel original series called Chicken Sisters, Season 1, Episode 6. So before I get into the review, I just want to say thank you to everybody who subscribes to my channel, likes my videos, leaves me comments. I appreciate it so much. If you have any discussion questions or comments about this episode, you can leave them below. I love interacting with everybody. So, getting into this episode, they showed previously on Chicken Sisters and they showed a lot of quick scenes, right? Sergio and Amanda kissing, Gus and Nancy arguing over the flowers, Gus finding out that May lied, that she actually was fired. And they also showed a quick scene of May and Amanda kind of getting along as sisters at the hotel. So definitely a lot of previously to see kind of what we're going to get and anticipate for this episode. And the episode starts with the wonderful narrator who I love. And it shows Gus when she was pregnant. So we kind of get a flashback. And, the girls are talking about her and whispering, behind her back. So you kind of get that feel that's always kind of the way it's been. She's a Mimi's girl. And then you actually see her get into a spat with her husband, and, he throws the wedding ring, or Gus has his wedding ring. So it implies that he kind of walks out while she's pregnant. So I think that's another piece to the puzzle. I assumed Gus raised her girls by herself, but we don't really know what stage of life they were in. And now we're finding out, he left when she was pregnant. And she was pretty ready to pop. I would say she was probably like 8 months pregnant when he left. So she really has been on her own raising these girls. So I like those little flashbacks into early life of Nancy and Gus and May and Amanda. I like that they incorporate a little bit of that in almost every episode to kind of give you more of that backstory of how they were raised. So, and it also shows Gus in her kitchen. We know she's a hoarder, but now she's hoarded so much that she can't even cook in her own kitchen. She can't even open up the oven. So this hoarding has really taken over her whole house. We saw in the last episode, it took over Amanda's room. That's why she couldn't stay, but now it's even in her kitchen. So she actually cooks at Kenneth and Patrick's. They offered up their kitchen, so she cooks her pies and things there. And I feel like that strengthens her friendship with Patrick and Kenneth. You also see that's how she met Sergio, because Sergio was, sleeping on the couch, and Gus was like, hey, get off the couch and stop moping and help us cook. And that started the friendship with Sergio, and that's how Sergio became the cook at Mimi's and kind of built on that friendship with Gus. So I like that they showed us that, so we kind of see how Sergio got to be the cook at Mimi's. And it kind of shows the strength of the friendship Gus has with Patrick, Kenneth, and now Sergio. So I like that they did that. And they also show Gus's gentleman friend, how he is not in a relationship with her. That's not Gus's lover. He's actually treating her. And, he's treating her for her ailments, her pain. Maybe she has some arthritis. We really don't know what is bothering her, just that she's feeling pain, and he is helping her with that. Acupuncture, and just giving her treatment. However, since they're doing it, in the restaurant after hours, and he's not, she's not going into the office, people are talking, and that's how rumors get started. However, Gus said, I don't want to go in your office because people are going to talk. And I feel like people talk about her anyways, kind of like during the drop when May went on her rant. Like, you're going to talk about her family anyways. You have nothing better to do. but Gus just is a very prideful woman and doesn't, I guess, want people to know she's getting treatment. So she still has him kind of come around when nobody's around to give her these treatments. And I feel like they've really built a friendship because remember, we saw in the past episode when Gus needed somebody to talk to, she would talk to him. So I feel like he's just not her doctor or the person who's treating her, but he's actually a friend to her as well. But I am so glad they showed that because I kind of knew that. I mean, if you've seen my videos, you saw me kind of hint around. I don't think they're romantically involved. I don't see Gus as a home wrecker. I don't see her going with a married man. Because remember, we know he's married, he has a baby. We saw him in the church scene, but we also heard them talk about it at the drop. Like, did you see him go in Mimi's after hours to see Gus? So we know that they've been spotted together. I'm just so glad that, they kind of cleared it up and showed you, they're not having a physical relationship, that he is helping her. So, definitely glad they showed that. I kind of expected that, but thank you for finally, finalizing it. We don't really know what is wrong with Gus, just that she has some ailments and he's treating her. So maybe we'll find out later on, what's been bothering her or if it's serious. And then you see Frank Jr. listening to Mr. Chicken and his app. Which I think nothing can come good of this, right? But he's the beta tester. So you have a scene where he's listening to the tapes and listening on the app. You also see May text her, ex-fiance or boyfriend Jay, wanting to talk things out. Jay's not ready to talk yet, but I hope we'll see them kind of mend their relationship because from what we've seen, Jay is really good to May. And I feel like May took him for granted and she's realizing it that now. So we'll see how that goes. And then you see Sabrina Sky's daughter want to come to work with her. And she actually helps. She's like, Mom, you make up food puns? Is that part of the job? And she gives her some suggestions and they're good. And Sabrina actually uses them on air. So I like that bonding moment. Like, hey, my daughter's coming to work with me. She sees what I do and she's able to improve it with some better wording for the camera. So I thought that was nice. Gus is having some, her hand is hurting. Like I mentioned, she's getting treatment. So she's having a problem helping Sergio prep because they're going to have a side dish competition for Kitchen Clash. So they're prepping. Nancy basically did all the prepping for Frank Jr. because it's going to be the man competition, Frank Jr. versus Sergio. So I'm like, this is going to be good. But Frank Jr. didn't really prep. I mean, Nancy cooked it, had the idea, gave him all the ingredients. But on the other side, Sergio is prepping and actually has May come to help since Gus is feeling, a little bit in pain there. So you kind of see Kenneth at the end have some attitude with May. I think once Kenneth realized that Patrick is okay with May now, because Patrick didn't like May, but he's coming around. And I think that kind of made Kenneth jealous. So he kind of cops an attitude and kind of tells, May, like, hey, you treated me badly, and kind of just goes off on her for a minute. And then Sergio asks for her help. So she leaves. So kind of leaves that Kenneth and May discussion there. So May actually helps prep. And then Amanda comes out and confronts May, and they have a little spat because Amanda finds out that her daughter is planning to go to New York and is going to stay with Aunt May. And Amanda didn't know that. So she flips out on May. So now you've got Kenneth flipped out on May, and now Amanda flips out on May, and Gus is still not happy with her. So May's not having a great day right now. But you go in and you're going to see this side dish competition, right? They're filming it. You got Frank Jr. and Sergio. And then Sabrina throws a twist, right? Which I love twists. But she says, all right, we're going to do something different before the competition starts. You're going to swap fridges. So I was like, oh, okay, that's definitely a twist. So now Sergio has to make a side dish with everything that Frank Jr. and them prepped. And then Frank Jr. has to make a dish from what Sergio had prepped. Which Sergio doesn't seem too concerned by, like, surprise, but likes a challenge, I feel like. And Frank Jr. looks a little nervous. Because remember, he didn't prep or make anything. Nancy did it and gave it all to Frank Jr. So I feel like he's nervous because he has to make it his own. And, he's looking in Sergio's fridge and it's not the same ingredients, obviously, of what he was going to prepare. So he gets all upset and he just walks out. He gets frustrated and walks out. Sits in his car and listens to Mr. Chicken app about the motivation. And, he comes back in and he's like, I'm focused to win. So whatever he was listening to in the car, with Mr. Chicken gave him the confidence to go in and do this, right? The side dish competition. So you see them prepare, like he thinks of something to make, and then you see the judges. There's three judges, and ultimately they decide that Sergio wins. And I'm like, okay. And they had some trash talk back and forth between Sergio and Frank Jr., but ultimately the judges pick Sergio, so he wins. And of course, in typical Frank Jr. manner, because he's hot-headed and disrespects people, of course he's mad, right? He gets upset, he yells, he's making a scene. Nancy tries to calm him down in typical Nancy motherling fashion. It's okay, it's okay. And he's like, this was stupid. What was the whole point? Blah, 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 blah. And he kind of totally disrespects Nancy, yells at her, talks down to her, right? And Sergio's like, look, you can't disrespect your mom. And he's like, what did you say? So Frank Jr. is now he disrespected Nancy because he was so upset. And then now he's getting in Sergio's face because Sergio was like, hey, don't disrespect your mom. And then Amanda tries to get in between them. And Frank Jr. just pushes Amanda out of the way. So you're 2 for 2, dude. You disrespect your mom and now you're pushing your wife and disrespecting her or whatever. Get out of my way. And gets up in Sergio's face and actually punches him. So, and of course they're filming it, they get the fight on video and, they kind of back off. And Frank Jr. walks away, and Sergio is there. And then you're left with Nancy and Gus. And obviously Nancy's upset, right? Just trying to calm her son down. He gets upset, punches Sergio, right? So she's a little agitated and she gets into it with Gus. She confronts Gus, you're always in our business, about Frank Sr. And Gus is like, what about Frank Sr.? What did I do to your precious Frank? And Nancy basically says, he told me he cheated, on me with you. I know you cheated. I know you had a relationship with Frank Sr. And Gus kind of laughs it off, which obviously makes Nancy upset. And Gus is like, no, I never did anything with Frank Sr. And why would he lie? Well, because he's a man, right? Because Gus always says that. But she's like, look, your husband came to the house, threatened me, basically said he's got the law and the bank on his side and he's going to put Mimi out of business. So Nancy's surprised by this because this whole time she thought her husband, had this, cheated on her with Gus, this, one time or this short little relationship. She had no idea that he could have done this, right? And Gus is like, yeah, that's how your husband was, right? So I think Nancy was taken back because it seems like he went and basically threatened Gus and was like, I'm taking you down. So I definitely think that was eye-opening for Nancy. And I personally, you probably saw this in my previous videos, I didn't think Gus had a relationship with Frank Sr. Not that there's anything wrong with Frank Sr., not that there's anything wrong with Gus. I just don't see it. I don't see Gus doing that. Not necessarily betraying Nancy because Nancy was dating him, but because I don't see Gus as that type of person. It's the same reason why I didn't think Gus was, having a relationship with her gentleman friend. I just thought there was more to it because he's married with this small child. I know Gus has this, tough love and she's got this tough exterior, this hard shell, but I don't see her, being a homewrecker, having that relationship. So I'm glad they established that she was getting treatment. And I'm glad that they established that Gus didn't sleep with Frank Sr. because again, it doesn't make sense to me. So I'm really glad that they're getting this all out in the open about Gus, right? She's a tough person to like, tough person to love, but she doesn't do that. She doesn't go around cheating on people. Um, and then you see May come to Kenneth, right, and apologize. And she actually gives him gifts. This was the gift. This is the flowers I should have gave you when your mother died. This is the wedding gift I should have gave you. And she's kind of like trying to make it up to him like, hey, I wasn't a good friend. I'm acknowledging that now. I'm sorry. I missed those times, those important moments in your life. I wasn't there for you. So I feel like May is saying, here's an olive branch to Kenneth, like, I apologize. And I feel like that was a really good, sincere of May to say that to Kenneth. And Kenneth being the good person he is, I've mentioned this before. Kenneth is a great person. The way May treated him, and he's still so nice. So the fact that he snapped at her, obviously you don't want to snap and get upset with people, but I feel like it's kind of all of that bottled up and he's finally letting it out, right? He was a little jealous of Patrick being nice to May and coming around and liking May, yes. But at the same time, I felt like it was probably a lot bottled up inside of how she treated him. So I understand why he kind of blurted out and snapped at her. So I like that they have it out in the open. Hopefully, May and Kenneth can kind of move on with their friendship. Amanda has kind of a heart to heart with her daughter about going to New York. She was kind of hurt you didn't come around and tell me you were going to New York. And I feel like, they kind of had a good moment too, a bonding moment in their relationship. I'm trying to be a good mom. I want to make sure I'm there for you and you have that unconditional love. And her daughter was kind of like, look, you don't have a good relationship with your sister, you don't have a good relationship with your mom, so where is this unconditional love example coming from, because I don't see it from you. So I feel like those were kind of harsh words, but they're the truth, and I feel like Amanda needed to hear that, and hopefully she can move on with her daughter. And then, Gus and Sergio talk, and Gus goes home to rest. Amanda goes to check on Gus. She doesn't answer the door. She goes to the restaurant. She finds Sergio and them talk. And Amanda kind of, you understand why we can't get together or why we can't be together. You're probably just passing through and you probably think that I'm this crazy woman. And Sergio's like, let's go for a drive. So they go for a drive, and basically he shows her a lot of land, and Sergio basically tells Amanda, like, look, I'm not just passing through, right? I bought this lot of land. I'm gonna build a home. I want to stay here in Merrimack. I want to, stay, put down roots, build a life here. I don't kiss a lot of women, or maybe I used to, but I really like you. I'm not just trying to have a fling. Like, I feel like we could have something. So I feel like, Sergio was kind of confessing to Amanda. And Amanda and them kind of have this moment where they look at each other and they start kissing and making out in the truck. So I'm like, okay, I like Amanda with Sergio. However, I'm torn because she's still married to Frank Jr. As much as I don't like Frank Jr., she is still married. So I mean, obviously the chemistry between Sergio and Amanda is amazing. They have great chemistry. I like them as a couple. I think Sergio's a great guy. I think Amanda is conflicted right now with her marriage, but I don't want to, condone them just being together all the time. I think Amanda needs to fix her relationship with Frank Jr. or get a divorce or leave, if she's going to heat up this flirtation and this relationship now that she's having with Sergio. I mean, one kiss, one makeout session is one thing. That's a mistake. But this is intentional. You know, they're feeling this. They're really kind of making out hot and heavy in this truck. So I'm like, okay, you need to make a decision, kind of do something with what you're doing with Frank Jr. But that's kind of the last you see of them kissing. That's kind of the end of them kissing in the truck. So you don't really see the next scene there. You do see a scene with Nancy. She's by herself in her bedroom, and you find out Frank Sr. has been gone for 6 years and she's still wearing her jewelry, which is not uncommon. I know a lot of people who are widowers and they still wear their wedding band. So I understand that. I don't know what that's like to go through a loss with your spouse. But I get that she's still connected to him and she still does that. However, in this scene, we see her kind of look at their wedding picture, take off their rings. And I feel like Nancy's like, I don't even really know who you were, Frank Sr. And she starts to kind of doubt what he told her. Like, I feel like Nancy never thought for a second that Frank Sr. would ever lie to her, right? She had so much confidence and support for him and admiration for him. I mean, that's her spouse. So I think she's rethinking her life with Frank Sr. And I think she's kind of believing Gus. Like, if Gus is true, why would he lie to me? And was he really ruthless that he was going to take out his competition? Is that something my husband would do? So I feel like she's really rethinking that. And she takes off her rings and puts them down, which I think might be the first time she's done that. So that's definitely something we're going to explore Nancy, thinking about reevaluating her life with Frank Sr. So, and then you see May, she's having dinner with Kenneth, so Kenneth obviously forgives her, and they're kind of talking, and May's saying out loud how she really wants to get back together with Jay, and she's kind of being honest with herself and Kenneth, like, look, I screwed up. He's been good to me. I really want to patch that up. And as they're talking, she turns around and Jay is there with his suitcase, like trying to check in at the end, coming to talk to her. So I was really happy to see that. Because I really want May to get back together with Jay. However, in the split scene that you see Jay, he doesn't necessarily look happy. He kind of looks confused and kind of perplexed. So I don't know if he's coming, obviously, to see May because he's showing up in Merrimack with a suitcase, but he looks a little confused, maybe because he's seeing Kenneth and her eating dinner and he's like, what is this about? What's going on? I don't know. But Jay just kind of looks a little confused, not happy, that I traveled all this way to make up with you. So I'm assuming, I can hope in the next episode, May's like, no, 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 Kenneth is my best friend. Like, we're not together. And hopefully they can patch things up because I really think that Jay is one of the best people on the show so far. He just really cares for May. And I hope they get back together. So even though he looks a little confused, that's where they leave it. So they're kind of leaving all these scenes with Nancy questioning her relationship with Frank Sr. and what kind of person he was. The last scene of Amanda and Sergio kissing in the truck. The last scene with May seeing Jay. No discussion, just that confused look on Jay's face. And then the very last scene you see is Frank Jr. And he's driving in his truck, listening to Mr. Chicken. I tell you that I just don't like Mr. Chicken. I got a bad vibe the moment I saw him on screen. He's listening to Mr. Chicken. He goes to a payphone. I'm like, okay, who's he calling in the payphone? And he calls the health inspector, leaves him a message, and says there are multiple code violations at Gus's house behind Mimi's that you should check it out. So I mean, like, my mouth dropped when I watched that. I was like, oh my gosh, are you serious? Like, Frank Jr. is calling the health inspector. Remember, Gus is a hoarder, right? So if somebody shows up at our house, the health inspector, I mean, it's going to be bad. There are multiple code violations. She can't even open up her oven. She's got stuff everywhere. So, and Frank Jr. is kind of smiling. He's kind of smug. I never liked the Frank Jr. character because I thought he, was kind of dirty with stooping low and doing stuff, the pranks on Mimi's. But this is bad. You're calling the health inspector on Gus, which means they're going to go to her house. Everybody's going to find out she's a hoarder. Maybe people already know, but this is not good. I'm curious on what's going to happen in the next episode. So, in my opinion, I even wrote this in my notes. Apparently, Frank Jr. is like his daddy because we just basically saw the true colors of Frank Sr. according to Gus. No, I wasn't, he didn't sleep with me or he didn't have a relationship. He threatened me to take out my business, that he's got more power with the law and the bank, and that I'm going down, basically. So you see the true colors of Frank Sr., and you see in this episode, him disrespect Nancy, push Amanda aside, no respect for women. And you see that he's calling the health inspector on Gus, on her house, saying that she's got multiple code violations. So I'm seeing a lot of Frank Sr. in Frank Jr. So I definitely think, it's going to be interesting for next week. The preview for next week shows people at Gus's house, like a line of people, including Nancy. So I'm assuming the health inspector goes to Gus's house. The town finds out about it. Maybe they pitch in to help. I don't know, but we'll see. We also see May and Jay talking, so I hope they're able to mend their relationship. So I'm happy to see that. I'm looking forward to it. And you see Gus tell Sergio, like, hey, I want a do-over. So you see Gus kind of deflated, kind of upset and kind of sad. And she says to Sergio, honestly, I want a do-over. And then Sergio says, well, why can't you have a do-over? So I'm curious to see what that's about. Because again, we know that the health inspector is going to come. We know there's going to be drama there. Are they going to find out it was Frank Jr.? I don't know. Maybe that's what puts, Amanda over the edge, and she leaves him again because obviously she wants to pursue this relationship with Sergio. So we'll see. I mean, I'm not a fan of Frank Jr., and I just think this is pretty low to call the health inspector. And then for him to smile and be smug about it. He's such a SOB. I'm just not a fan. So I'm looking forward to it. I knew when I saw Mr. Chicken, nothing good could come of it. And I feel like Frank Jr. is just going downhill, being all confident and doing this with Gus. So definitely think it's a low blow. I thought they left us with a lot of different cliffhangers. I'm very excited to see what's going on next week. How everybody kind of hopefully, bands around Gus and helps her, and what that means for the competition and how everything's going to go. So a lot of cliffhangers, great episode. I'm excited for next week. I hope you enjoyed my review. I hope you enjoyed the episode. And until next week, I will see you then. Bye.